Hi, I'm Rod Pry, the director of the Pennsylvania State Sunday School Association, and this is another of our weekly International Sunday School Lesson Preview videos. This is the preview of the lesson for Sunday, April the 11th. This week we will be continuing with the quarterly lesson series entitled Prophets Faithful to God's Covenant. And this week's lesson, taken from the Old Testament book of Ezra, is entitled The Faith in Action Preacher. We've all heard the phrase, actions speak louder than words. And certainly, the Bible shows us many examples of people putting their faith into action. Jesus illustrated many of his teachings and miracles with actions, and the number of the prophets put emphasis on their prophetic messages by adding actions. For example, you may remember our Sunday school lesson from 2 weeks ago when Elijah put emphasis on his warnings to King Ahab by stopping all of the rainfall and plunging the nation into drought. But this week's lesson looks at a different prophet, Ezra. And the lesson comes from the 10th chapter of the book of Ezra, verses 1 to 10. You may remember that because of their sins against him, God allowed the Babylonians to overtake Jerusalem and take the people of Israel into exile. This happened in 586 BC. Eventually, the Persians defeated Babylon, and Cyrus, the Persian ruler, released the Jews and allowed them to return home. Actually, the Jews were released in 3 different waves, the first occurring at 538 BC, the second at 458 BC, and the third at 444 BC. Today's lesson takes place following the second group returning to Jerusalem. That group was led by Ezra. Ezra was a priest, a prophet, and a teacher of the law of Moses. In the chapter preceding this week's lesson, in chapter 9, Ezra is made aware that the people of Israel had committed grave sins. The most glaring was the fact that they had intermarried with the people from outside of Israel. Today's lesson begins in verse 1 by saying that while Ezra was praying and confessing, weeping and throwing himself down before the house of God, a large crowd of Israelites, men, women, and children gathered around him. They too wept bitterly. Why was everyone upset? In verses 2 through 4, one of the men in the crowd said to Ezra, "We have been unfaithful to our God by marrying foreign women from the people around us. But in spite of this, there is hope for Israel. Now, let us make a covenant before our God to send away all of these women and their children in accordance with the counsel of my Lord and those who fear the commands of our God. Let it be done according to the law. Rise up. This matter is in your hands. We will support you, so take courage and do it." God wanted them to divorce their foreign women and cast them out of their cities. Why? Was this based on some racial or ethnic thing? No. God warned his people, back in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 7, that it wasn't about the foreign women, but rather about their foreign religions. In verse 4 of Deuteronomy 7, God says that foreign faiths will turn your children away from following me. And did you notice what this man said there at the end of verse 4? He said, "We will support you, so take courage and do it." It certainly would take courage to tell all the men who had married foreign women that they had to get rid of their wives. I don't think this ruling would have been greeted very fondly, but it was something that needed to be done. So Ezra issued a proclamation calling all of the exiles to assemble. Then verses 9 through 11 say this: "Within 3 days, all of the men of Judah and Benjamin had gathered in Jerusalem. And on the 20th day of the 9th month, all of the people were sitting in the square before the house of God, greatly distressed by the occasion and because of the rain. Then Ezra the priest stood up and said to them, 'You have been unfaithful. You have married foreign women, adding to Israel's guilt. Now honor his will. Separate yourself from the people around you and from your foreign wives.'" Ezra saw the problem. and he had the courage to take action and fix it. His actions might have been met with total rejection, but he still had the courage to put his faith into action. This lesson actually has two different points that I think you need to address. The first is that issue that Ezra was facing, unequally yoked couples in marriage. Christians married to non-Christians. What's the problem? The same as it was back in Ezra's day. The same thing that Deuteronomy 7:4 had warned about. The non-Christians will turn the couple's children away from following the Lord. And then there's also the issue of Christians putting their faith into action. When Ezra saw a problem, he confronted it and took action. Are you willing to do the same thing? Are you willing to put your faith, what you believe, into action? Or are you content just to sit back and let everything just go along as is, sort of a c'est la vie type attitude? What will be, will be. I don't think that this is what James had in mind when he said, faith without works, without action, is dead. I'm Rod Pry from the Pennsylvania State Sunday School Association. Thank you for being with me today. I hope to see you again next week.